Hello, Joe.
Hi, good morning.
It's good to see you.
Thank you for inviting me.
Pleasure. Joe Keeling, you're a former police officer, and it's good to talk to you about your experience about both being a police officer, but also I think about developing an allergy in adulthood. Now, we've got lots of videos about childhood allergies, so it would be good to hear from your perspective.
Yes, I was 29 when I was diagnosed with allergies, so a little late on. Before that, I had hay fever. So
Right.
that's the only kind of problem that I had in teenage years and right the way throughout. Still have hay fever. But I joined the police force. I was actually a special whilst I was at uni in Southampton. And then I joined the regular police force in 2000. And from 1995, when I joined as a special and continuing throughout being a regular, we initially had what was called latex gloves. I had not a clue about allergies,
So
other
no,
than
no indication before.
nothing at all. No, like I said, just had hay fever. At the same time as using the latex gloves, I started to perhaps a little bit overdose on almonds. I loved almond oil for my nails, used it shampoo for my hair. Anyway, so that continued. But when I was using the latex gloves, one time I used them, I'd been in a drugs warrant and I'd been using them for quite some time. So um, when I rubbed my eye because I was tired, within about a few seconds, my eye kind of it just blew up
Ah,
like
hmm.
this. And obviously, I rubbed it even more, at which point my face swelled. I don't know if anybody's seen the film Hitch with Will Smith, but when he has an allergic reaction, his face completely swells. Well, that's what happened to me. And my supervisor said to me, "Is everything okay? Your face is swelled." I thought at that point that I'd had some contact with some drugs that had been found in the house and perhaps it had a reaction to my skin. So I really didn't think anything of it. However, every time I started wearing the gloves, progressively over the next few months, I would have really intensely itchy hands. My hands would swell. Anywhere I seemed to touch with these gloves, my face would swell. Um, I had ended up having a procedure in a hospital, and they put an oxygen mask on me in the recovery unit. And the elastic that was on my face was a little old, and so it had frayed. So the rubber piece underneath, if you like, on my face kind of it did this to my cheeks either side. It swelled quite badly, and I felt really, really very unwell. And I had a really bad allergic reaction. So at that point, I was asked if I had a latex allergy. And I said, "Well, it's funny you should say that." So at the same time, I developed problems with almonds. I ended up having very itchy lips, a swollen tongue. My airway started closing. So further investigations were done via the GP and Professor Fru's allergy clinic. And it was determined that I had, with my medical history and skin prick tests and blood tests, that I had severe allergies to latex, a type 1 allergy, and also to almonds, but also to peanuts, which, with my history that I gave them, and I perhaps had some symptoms of those looking back when I was a child, but I just decided that I didn't like them and they made me feel funny, so I never ate them. Um, so that's what happened. I went to the allergy clinic, age 29, walked away with this diagnosis and thought, well, in the grand scheme of things, as far as medical conditions go, I can avoid those things. What's going to be the problem? If I'm honest, I was extremely naive, and little did I know kind of really what impact it was going to have on my life from there onwards.
So when you went back to work, presumably you had to go to the health and safety rep or HR or whoever you needed to report back to. Were they sympathetic and open? How did they react?
Yeah, so I had an appointment with occupational health, and they discovered that I'd been issued EpiPens. And originally, I was told that I wouldn't be able to do frontline duties, which horrified me because I would previous to that, I wanted to be a lawyer, and I'd gone to university to study, but my love of the police force grew, and I'd given up that career to join the police force. And to me, I just didn't want to sit behind a desk, so that wasn't what policing was all about. So I was slightly horrified when they said to me, a frontline police officer couldn't carry an EpiPen. One of that was obviously protection for myself, but they were also worried about EpiPens being found by a member of the public that you were perhaps having a confrontation with, and they would get hold of the EpiPens and use them as some kind of weapon. I decided that I wasn't going to have that, and I basically researched every constabulary in England and Wales from A to Z, called them, and found out there were lots of officers who had EpiPens on duty. And obviously with relevant risk assessments, that we could make a reasonable adjustments and we could progress. So I kind of fought my way back, and we had some risk assessments drawn up, and they were adhered to really well. Years after years, different supervisors came along. Of course, food allergy was an issue at some times, but generally, if I controlled what I eat at work, it depends what I take in my own lunchbox and what I buy and take to work with me, then generally I was never going to have a problem with food allergies. I would have a few problems with peanut butter being used in the staff canteen, so to speak, and left with a knife on the chopping board and remnants of peanut butter everywhere. But other than that, the food allergy wasn't an issue. What was an issue was latex gloves, or latex. So latex gloves were taken away because people come into custody when they've been arrested, and obviously if officers use latex gloves on them and they have anaphylaxis from latex, that wasn't very good. And so they changed the gloves to vinyl or nitrile alternatives. So that was a huge part of my problem gone. But for anyone who doesn't know, latex is kind of in a lot of your everyday surroundings and a lot of things. So to risk assess my surroundings every time I went to an incident was obviously very important. You have to risk assess for dangers anyway as a police officer, but I'd have to give it a cursory skim round to see if there were any other latex things, soles of people's shoes, balloons, car tires, bicycle tires, just erasers, all sorts of things are rubber. And obviously when you're trying to detain somebody or trying to separate a fight or some confrontational position you find yourself in, it's very difficult sometimes to risk assess what people are wearing and whether they've got shoes with rubber based soles. So however, it was manageable from the time I was diagnosed up until 2015 when I got medically retired, unfortunately.
And was that because of the allergy, the latex in particular?
Unfortunately, it was. As I said, risk assessments were adhered to, and station policy was in the station I worked at. There was a room and there was a sign on the door saying no elastic bands in here. That was my biggest problem in the station. And every now and again, the supervisor would say, "Come on, guys, let's put the elastic bands away before Joe has anaphylaxis." And there's a whole lot of paperwork to do. We were joking. It's obviously not serious to joke about anaphylaxis, but that's how we dealt with it. And I was fine with that. People would pick up the elastic bands, put them in the cupboard, and I wouldn't see them. Unfortunately, things got a little bit lax, and that didn't happen. And basically, it was an elastic band that I came into contact with. But unfortunately, when I was driving the police vehicle, it was quite a warm day, and I'd only just started driving the car, and I thought, my chest feels really tight. Now, police officers wear body armour that is quite heavy, but being that it was warm summer's day, I couldn't recognise the signs at first. So then my chest got really tight, then I could feel my airway closing, and unbeknownst to me, the car kind of swerved a bit and ended up on a grass bank. I was very, very, very lucky because in police vehicles, there's an emergency button you can press and it opens up the airwaves and you have sole, position to speak, if you like. They could hear there was something wrong with me. However, as luck would have it, in the car behind me were two community nurses. And,
Gosh.
And also I was policing in the New Forest. I could have been in anywhere, any road, but I happened to be on this road with a car behind me with two nurses.
Yeah.
Anyway, they administered EpiPens, and I was blue lighted to hospital.
Mm.
So I thought it would be an appointment with occupational health. We'll just tighten up a few procedures and reasonable adjustments and carry on. So I was a little shocked when...
A major impact on your life.
Yeah, because anyone who knows any police officers will know emergency service workers, it isn't a job per se, it is a way of life, especially policing. You're a police officer 24/7. And I'd given up such a large amount of my life for working as a police officer, and as a special before that, 5 years voluntarily.
Mm.
It was a huge impact. So when someone said about ill health retirement, I almost thought, it's fine, I can fight this again. It's not going to happen. But it just turned out that obviously my safety is paramount to everybody. And whilst I understand what happened to me, I still feel aggrieved that things could have been very different in the workplace. I also think reasonable adjustments could be made where you could still perhaps continue as a police officer in an albeit different capacity. But I think I fell out of the norm, and so it became a little bit difficult to kind of know what to do with me. You see, 99% of the time I'm fit for duty. There is that 1% chance, that I could have anaphylaxis, and ultimately it could end in a fatality. Nobody wants that. I don't want to be a risk to the general public. It hurts me very much to know that I could have swerved the car into somebody and caused injury to another person. So it was a lot to deal with. So 1 minute I'm a police officer, and the next minute I'm not. So that's
a huge impact on your life, a huge impact on your career.
Yeah.
I can't imagine, what was going through your mind at that time, because it is, for many people, it would be quite a challenge to have such a profound change in their life and change of direction, and where presumably you were talking about a career in the law, a lifelong career in the police force coming to an end almost overnight. How did you manage?
I had two things going on. One, I had at that time, I had a real fear of driving. Now, anyone who knows me, I'm quite a determined person. I don't like to be told I can't do something, but the knock-on effect of that anaphylaxis was quite different to any other anaphylaxis I'd had before, because not only obviously could I have nearly died, but obviously in the way that it happened, the manner of driving, I had a real fear of driving after that. I've got two young children, and I couldn't obviously not get on with my life as normal. So I had to set myself some challenges to get out of that. And there were flashbacks and nightmares and anxiety that I'd never experienced before. Thoughts of dying came into my head quite a lot. I don't know if that's as a parent, when you're facing that situation, you suddenly then thinking, gosh, my children could have been left without mum. Had a huge impact on my children, particularly my son had a lot of nightmares. He didn't want me to go back to work because I might be chased by robbers with balloons. I mean, he was very little, and I did say to him that most people committing burglary or robbery don't run around with balloons, but we joke, but that's the thought of...
Well, that's the kids, the kids do, don't they?
Yeah. Through a 9-year-old's
yeah.
But yeah, so there was that to deal with, and I didn't recognise that as any PTSD symptoms at all, because I dealt with suicides, cot deaths, murders, fatal RTCs. There's absolutely no way that one incident had caused so much problems to me. So I wouldn't accept that at first. So that was one issue. The other issue was, I'm a police officer. What am I going to do with my life? I kind of felt like everything had come to an end. You see, for some people, they work, and if they were told tomorrow that they didn't have to go and do that job, they'd be elated. For other people, when I give the talk at the Allergy MSc course in Southampton, I said to the doctors, you join this, it's a vocation. You join this profession for the love of wanting to help people. Imagine waking up tomorrow and being told you can no longer be a doctor anymore, or a nurse or a teacher or whatever profession that you have. That was a lot to deal with, and it took a lot longer to get over this part of anaphylaxis. And it also led to further problems down the line. I became more aware of my surroundings, less trusting of people, less trusting of situations. When a restaurant's telling me, you know, they're going to look after me and not to worry about certain allergens and how they deal with things, I wanted to stick to tried and tested restaurants. I didn't have any faith to do anything new. Holidaying abroad became a problem. Everything became heightened. Despite everything I'd been through before, this one particular time seemed to take a greater hold of me than ever before. So it was quite, really was a very life-changing.
So talking to the University of Southampton, I also know you've written a few books as well for children on that. You're turning it round as into a positive. But yes. How did you get there? How did you get to that place where it was more of a, you know, you could actually look at it in a positive way?
I think I've always been that type of person. I don't know if it's a coping mechanism. I don't look through life with rose-tinted glasses at all, but I try and think that anything negative happens to you, there's always something you can learn from it. And I've obviously got it in me to want to help people. And so when my daughter was 2.5 and she ended up calling an ambulance for me, I didn't do that deliberately to teach her at all. It was a game of doctors and nurses, and she kind of put it into practice. And you know, and I thought, here I am, I've had anaphylaxis, I'm a police officer, I've got a story to tell, and other people can learn from this. So if my 2.5-year-old daughter can learn parrot fashion, her name, address, and how to make an emergency call, all children learn how to make how to sing nursery rhymes. They learn them parrot fashion. Every other child can do the same. So you take comfort in the fact that something horrible has happened to you, but you've turn something into a positive thing that can help other people, and that's ultimately what I'm here for. If I felt that I was going through all these things and I wasn't learning anything from it, and there was nothing to share with other people, I feel like I'm going through all of it for nothing, and that makes it harder to deal with. So yes, I've lost my career, but since then I've had some newspaper articles written about me, and if I can share awareness to just one other employer out there, or one other person who works for a company, to think, oh, my colleague's got allergies, you know, perhaps I'll be a little bit more considerate, or perhaps I will think this way, or I think out of the box a little bit. Then if sharing my story helps, then I think that's a fantastic thing. And you know, I got invited to the allergy MSc course, and I was really very nervous. Like I said to you before, I was chatting to professors and registrars and consultants, but for them to hear what they've learned in theory, so to speak, and the practical experience they've had over the years of however they work in whichever clinical field, if they can hear a true story from a patient and how much impact it's had on my life. I mean, even for when I was pregnant, I had 2 children induced 2 weeks early, both of them because of latex allergy. So even in their very young lives, they'd already had a huge impact being born into the world early. You know, it's caused such a lot of problems in life, but if I can share my experiences with people and it can help people build a better understanding, and just a few people can learn from that or help people with allergies, then I consider that's a job well done. And that
no, indeed. So yeah, you're absolutely right. Well, you're doing great at doing that. Jo, what would you say to an employer? What would be a kind of key message?
Key message is to try and understand. There are lots of medical conditions, and I'm not asking for employers to learn everything about a medical condition, but most people have occupational health teams, and sometimes a person doesn't fit within the box. Sometimes we have to think outside the box to accommodate them. I know having latex allergy is very rare, and I'm led to believe I'm the only person in the England and Wales that's been medically retired for latex allergy, possibly in the UK. What you want is an employer to understand that the allergy isn't something that you have any control over. I mean, obviously, I can control if I eat peanuts or almonds, but on the whole, particularly latex allergy or bee sting allergy or anything you really can't risk assess for, or even giving mouth-to-mouth resuscitation to somebody who has eaten peanuts. I've not deliberately gone out of my way to make myself ill. All I'm asking for them to do is to try and understand allergies, to increase their first aid training to their members of staff, perhaps show EpiPen or AAI videos to their staff, incorporate it in their first aid training, and to try and understand that this isn't a condition that's brought on by stress, which is what one supervisor said to me. She likened it to psoriasis, which really infuriated me, because we all have first aid training as police officers, so she should have known. And to just listen to see to the member of staff, to see what they can do to help. If your employer's done absolutely everything they can, and it sometimes happens, then that's just life. That's how it happened. But I just feel that sometimes people think you're an adult and that you can look after your own medical condition yourself, and they can sort of have their procedures and walk away from it. And that's not how it is. I think people with allergies have a unique medical problem because it's a bit of a team effort from everybody, from the communities outside, from restaurants, from food producers, from hospitals. Everyone plays a part in a person with allergic medical problem. And
absolutely right. And you're part of Anaphylaxis UK team. Everybody listening to this is part of Anaphylaxis UK team. We just need to grow that team. You're absolutely right. Get that message out there, raise awareness, and share that what's been a very powerful and clearly an emotional story of yours, as well as that experience that you've had. And it's been great of you to help share that message, but also really to share your experience with others.
Thank you very much for inviting me. I feel privileged. I mean, you're an absolutely amazing charity, and I just feel really honoured that you've asked me. Thank you.